What's good, guys? In today's video, we are going to be talking about FlutterFlow and API calls. And so in the first part of the video, I'm going to be talking about what exactly are API calls, how do they work, what is the purpose, how can you test. There's a lot of tools that are going to make your life easier. And then in the second part of the video, we're going to be building a sample FlutterFlow app using API as a way to get third-party data. And that way you will learn exactly how you can incorporate third-party data into your FlutterFlow app. Now, before we get started, this is very, very important. If you want to know how to build any kind of app imaginable without writing a single line of code, if you want to build tools for yourself or for others, or start a software company without needing any kind of a tech background or hiring developers, make sure you hit a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, and also make sure you leave a comment just letting me know what you think about this video. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, is there something I can do to improve my tutorial methods or anything else that you want me to know. That really helps out the channel and allows this video and this channel to be noticed by more people. So I really appreciate it. And so that is very important. Now, having said that, let's get into the video. So here we have a diagram. We have FlutterFlow API tutorial. And what happens typically is you have your app here. You're building your app, but your app needs data, okay? So with FlutterFlow, you have access to Google's Firebase database. And I actually made a video exactly on using it. This is a great database system. It's scalable, it's very easy, it's super flexible. You can do a lot of things with it. And it's provided by Google, and it's very easy to develop with. So you can take a look at the video. Another method is by contacting a third-party service. Okay, so we're not going to be storing this data internally with our app, but we're going to be using a third-party service, right? A simple example of a third-party service would be something like getting the weather forecast, like today's weather, tomorrow's weather, next week, stuff like that. You can also get the time zones, or you can get pretty much anything. I'm going to be showing you exactly what kind of stuff that you can get. And last but not least, we also have an option of using an internal database. Now, typically with FlutterFlow, you're going to be using Google Firebase as your internal database, or you're going to be using something like an API for accessing third-party service, okay? Now, before we go further, I want to quickly give you an overview of exactly how this API thing works, right? At a very high level, we have our app, and this API can potentially use 5 methods. These are called methods. And so we have the get method, we have the post method, we have put, patch, and delete. Typically, you're almost always, well, pretty much always going to be using the get method, okay? The get method is used to read data. You're essentially getting data. The post method is used when you need to post data, meaning you want to write data, you want to send data, okay? Next, we have a couple of these methods. So like something like put and patch are typically used interchangeably, really, when you want to modify data. So in many cases, it's going to be put. Sometimes it's going to be patch, and other times it's going to be one or the other method. So this really depends on the implementation, on the interface. And I'm going to show you a couple of situations that use them differently. And last but not least, we have the delete method. And this is called when you want to delete a record. And so, for instance, you're accessing an API of users or products, and you're getting it. And then you decide, okay, I want to delete a record. So what you're going to do is you're going to send a delete with the record ID. And the backend API system is going to go ahead and delete this record if it exists. Okay, so now that you have kind of a general overview how it works, let me show you the possibilities that you get by using this API with third parties. So here's a site called a Rapid API, and this is essentially a site where you can discover and connect to thousands of APIs. And some of these APIs are free, some of these APIs have a paid plan, so it really depends on the API you want to use. So for instance, we have popular APIs, we have a recipe food nutrition. Okay, so if we click on this right here, and we want to understand it better, right? This is this Spoonacular nutrition recipe and food API allows you to access over 365,000 recipes and 86,000 food products. Our food ontology and semantic recipe search engine makes it possible to search for recipes. So this allows you to essentially build a site having to do with recipes. Okay, build an app. Maybe you're looking to build like a health app or like a diet app or something like that. You can essentially get your recipes from this API. It has 365,000 recipes and 86,000 food products, right? This is more than enough to kind of build your own app. And so what happens is there are many of these services out there, but when you want to take a look on this left-hand side, right? As you can see, there's these GET requests, and this allows you to get data, search recipes by complex, by nutrients, by ingredients, information. Then if you scroll down, you have a couple of post requests, right? So if you click on it, it allows you to extract ingredients from recipe instruction steps. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. But the majority of the time, you're going to be using one of these GET requests because you're not going to be modifying recipes, right? A recipe is a recipe. It's really no need to modify it and to change it, right? For the most part, you're going to be using these GET requests. And so this is just one of the examples that's out there for you that makes everything powerful, right? And if you go into pricing here, you can get an idea. You can kind of see what happens here. So we have the basic plan, which allows you 500 per day, plus you have a kind of, this is a soft limit. And so for each additional, you're paying, a third of a cent initially, right? Less than a cent, a third of a cent for each additional. So this is kind of a soft limit. And then you have various plans here. You have your frequently asked questions. So this is just to give you an idea of what's possible out there. You can have access to all kinds of data that you never have to worry about getting or having or kind of, obtaining via any other means. It makes it super powerful, okay? So now that I kind of given you an idea of the possibilities, and the possibilities are really endless, let's talk a little bit about how you can actually, where can you get this API? Like, we need an API. Before we build the app, we need an API to work with, right? And typically, this is going to be an API from a site like this, or it's going to be your own server, or a combination of both. But for this video, we're going to be using something called the Fake Store API. And this essentially allows you, it gives you a Fake Store REST API for your e-commerce or shopping website prototype. And this is essentially an API. It's a live API, except it's made out of fake data. Okay, so if I scroll down, you can see that we have 4 main resources, right? We have products, cart, users, and login token. And so we're going to be kind of focusing on the products here, okay? So if I open this link and I load it up, this is kind of what I see. And if I, append 1 to it, I'm going to get the first product. If I append 2 to it, I'm going to get the second product. Now, it's kind of hard to see what's happening because this format here is called the JSON format. But if I select it and copy it, and I use a tool such as paw here, and I basically copy this URL here instead of using like Google Chrome here like I was using, I'm going to be using this app. And there are lots and lots of apps. I'm using an app called paw, but essentially there are tons of apps. There are free products. You have to search for an app that allows you to kind of test APIs, okay? And if I paste this URL, the same URL I have here, and I press enter, I'm going to get a response. So if I go in here, this is the response. I have 200 OK, which means everything is fine. And if I go into response and I format it as JSON text, now I can see exactly what happens. I can see this is an array of records. You see this square bracket. So there's an open square bracket. And if I scroll down, there's going to be a closed square bracket right here. This is essentially an array. Everything in between are records inside this array, okay? And next, I see these curly braces, right? Curly brace open, curly brace closed here, right here. And then a comma, and these are objects or records or whatever you want to call them. Essentially, it's an array of objects, okay? And knowing this allows you to understand how to manipulate this data, okay? So now that we have an API, we have the data from an API, and it works, right? We see it on the screen. We know what to do with it. We can now start building the app because we have the data to it. Building the app is straightforward. The question is, where do we get the data? Where do we get the API? And so in this next step, I'm going to go into FlutterFlow. I'm going to log into my account, and I'm going to build a sample app. And I'm going to show you how to actually incorporate this API and display it inside your app, okay? So here I am in FlutterFlow. I'm going to create a brand new project, and I'm going to call it Test API. I'm going to say create new. I'm going to say skip. And so now I'm inside this UI. I'm looking at this empty canvas here, and I can, fix my app bar and change it to something else. I can remove it altogether. I'm just going to remove it altogether just to keep things very, very simple. So all I have is a home page here. And now what we want to do is we want to create a very, very simple app that displays the records that we got from this API. So essentially it's going to be a list with various key value pairs. So maybe we're going to display a title and the price and maybe a description, or just maybe title and price, just to keep things simple, okay? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go here, API calls. You need to click on this, and you need to add an API call. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to call this products API, or just, products, whatever. Method is get, method type is get, and it needs the URL. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to copy this URL, and I'm going to paste it here. Now, we also have an option for adding headers and query parameters. So a header is going to be in a situation where you need to send a header along with this GET request. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, if we go to this app here, this is my request, and these are the headers. Okay, so I'm sending 3 headers. You don't have to worry about that. Like, these are just standard headers. FlutterFlow is going to do it for you. In situations where you need to authenticate, you need to authorize, you're going to be sending some kind of a token or something of that sort. In that case, you're going to be adding headers. We don't need to do that in this instance, so that's fine. Now, query parameters are a way for me to add different parameters into my request. So for instance, if I want a particular object, I don't want just products. I want a certain product. Remember, if I come in here and I enter 1, I can get a specific product. If I enter 50, I can get a product. Well, there's no. If I enter 10, I can get product number 10, okay? That's a specific way of me getting a single product that I want instead of getting all the products and then filtering them later on, which is something I can do, but that's very time consuming and not as efficient, because what's the purpose of me getting all the products, having all this data and then filtering it on my side when I can just request directly a specific product? So that is something that you can do, okay? So in this case, we're just going to be getting all the products. We're not going to be getting, a specific product, and we're going to go to response and test, okay? And so what we got to do now is we need to hit this test API call. Once I do that, we have 200 success. That's a good sign, and this is kind of what we're seeing. Now, it has a bunch of options for JSON paths, and you can create JSON paths. We don't really need to do that just yet. We don't have to worry about that. That is something we're going to do later on, but in this case, you don't have to worry about that. That is advanced stuff, and I'm going to be talking about that in just a little bit, so you will have an understanding of what exactly is a JSON path. At this point, all that's left is to hit this add call, and now we have an API called products API. And so now we can go back into our UI and we can start building this app now that we configured the API. It's very, very important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the UI builder. I'm going to look for a list. I can do a list style, I can do a list view, I can do a grid as well. So you can do a grid view as well, but I'm just going to do something simple, doesn't matter. I'm just going to do a list, and I'm going to drag it right here. So now we have a list. If I go into the widget tree, I see a list. What I want to do is I want inside of a list, I want to specify that this list actually is going to be getting data from this backend query. So if I go into query type, I want to say API call, and I'm going to choose my products API, and I'm going to hit save. Okay, so now you see this thing right here, this kind of little database icon. That means it's getting data now from somewhere. Now that I've configured the list view, I told it where it's going to get the data. The next thing I need to do, and this is very, very important, I need to go to this item here, and it's called generate dynamic children. And what I need to do is I need to generate children from a variable, okay? And so what that means is that, so if you take a look at this thing here, this paw here, and we go to response, you see what we are getting right now is we're getting an array. We do not want an array. We want the children of that array, okay? It's very, very important. So what I'm going to say items. You can call it whatever you want. For max items, you can say 10, 5. I'm just going to leave that as is. And I want to say source products API from list view. response options. I'm going to say JSON body, available options, JSON path. And we have JSON path name custom. And now we need the path. Okay, so this is where you need to understand what is a JSON path. It's very, very important. So if I Google for JSON path here, you will have a JSON path online evaluator. And so what it does, right? This is very, very simple, but it can be a little bit complicated for some, is that it allows us to specify what kind of data that we want. So for instance, this is a piece of JSON, or let's copy our JSON, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to copy all this JSON here, okay? So this is the JSON that we have. And JSON path evaluator allows us to specify very specifically what record do we want, or do we want, certain records? Do we want to filter records? It's a way of specifying records, because if we go back to FlutterFlow, we have not specified exactly how we want to generate the children. Do we want the children from like the root element, meaning like we want all of these children, or do we want like very, very specific nested children? Okay, in this case, this is our JSON. What we want to do is we want to remove everything. And we get the children. These become our children. This is the root node, okay? If I do something like, I can also do 0. That will give me the first element. I can also do 1. That will give me the second element. I can also do first element ID, and that's going to give me 1. I can say first element title, and that's going to give me the title. We don't want any of that. We want the root node, because the children that we need, these items, are essentially, they're in the root node. They are inside this array, and we want to open up that array, and we want to work with these objects here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a $sign. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to leave this $sign. That's really the root node. That's all I need to do. So I'm going to hit save. Okay? So now we have a list view that gets the data from the API, from our fake API or sample products API. And then we get that array, and then we also generate children from that. And so now I can add a row, and inside the row I can add 2 text elements, which means two pieces of information. So now I have a row, which is essentially a list of rows, and each row is going to have 2 text elements here, okay? So what are we going to be displaying? We are going to be displaying, let's take a look, we're going to be displaying title and price. You can do it any way you want, but we're going to be displaying title and price. So here I'm going to go to my first text. I'm going to scroll down. Actually, it's right here. I'm going to set from variable, and I'm going to say source items item JSON right here. Options, JSON path. We are getting this thing. I'm going to say title. That's it. The first is title. I'm going to hit save. Same thing for the second thing. I'm going to say set from variable. I'm going to say items, JSON path, and I'm going to say price. That's it. Okay, and so now we are going to get all the items, because we're not limiting them, right? You can go to list view, and you can set max items if you want. And we're going to be getting all the titles and all the prices. So another thing I want to do is I want to make sure it's actually readable. So we can actually sort it like this. And that way it's going to be easier kind of to see. It's going to have this kind of formatting. And so now we're going to run the app, and hopefully it's going to display what we needed to display. So I'm going to hit run. And so as you can see, we're getting the exact data that's stored in our API. So we have this fold sack, #1 backpack. We have men's casual premium slim fit t-shirts. We have men's cotton jacket, men's casual slim fit. Now, if we go back to our API here, you can see this is the fold sack, this is the slim fit t-shirt, and we're also getting the prices, $22.3, $55.99, and you can format it as a dollar amount. That's all very, very easy. Now, obviously, there's some formatting that needs to be done. This needs to wrap. It needs to be aligned correctly, but all of that can be easily achieved, and I'm going to be talking about all of these formatting options in one of the later videos when I talk about some of the ways that you can design the UI and make it beautiful, okay? But in this tutorial, I wanted to show you how you can implement and add any kind of API to your app. And so if you enjoyed this video, definitely give this video a fat like, smash that like button, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Also, let me know what kind of video you want me to make next. Let me know what kind of things you're struggling with right now, where you're having issues, where you're stuck right now. Do you like FlutterFlow tutorials? Do you want to see another tool? Definitely let me know which direction I should be heading into. And also, if you're not yet subscribed, definitely hit the subscribe button. There's going to be some really exciting stuff in the future, new tools, new techniques, new different ways that you definitely do not want to miss. So that is all for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you in a future video.